this story of Bassem and Chris Cuomo interview. It's interesting. So Chris Cuomo, he is one of the hosts on News Nation. You guys know he came from CNN, got fired from CNN because of sexual harassment and all that jazz. Interesting how he's able to just pick back up like that and get a job again. Interesting. He actually has another project that he's a part of called the Chris Cuomo Project. And he interviews guests on that platform. And he recently interviewed Bassem Youssef about the Middle East turmoil. And I really want to dive into this conversation. There are two parts I want to focus on for this discussion, because Bassem, he's a comedian, he's funny, but he gets it, right? He gets history. He understands what's happening to the Palestinian people. But what I want you to focus on is Chris Cuomo's responses, and I'll tell you why, because there's something that I've started to notice. Let's dive in at this point here.
Because there's a lot of the pro-Zionists are on the left, big time. There's a lot of people who, like Joe Biden, he's a Democrat, and people are asking him just ceasefire. And a lot of people who are on the bankroll of AIPAC are actually Democrats. So it's not really a left-right thing. Yes.
Well, everybody was pro-Israel in America. Both parties, the leaders, the money, the influence was too great for anybody to abandon it. But don't you think that the right kind of edged ahead even before this most recent conflict, moving the consulate to Jerusalem and Trump being so much more of a vocal BB ally, and much more so than Biden, certainly as a vestige of the Obama administration? It seems now that if you were to point to one of the two parties and say, which one is more pro-Israel, people would say the GOP, not the Democrats.
Absolutely.
Pause. So I want to show you something I noticed about Chris Cuomo. You know what he just did there? He just admitted to Bassem and everyone else who saw this interview that he knows the reason why our politicians are supporting Israel is because of the money. What did he say? The money's just too good there. Both parties supported the Israeli lobby. Problem that I have is that he just stated that on this show, but he'll appear on News Nation and he'll still give pro-Israel talking points and pretend like all of a sudden this conversation didn't happen. All of a sudden he'll pretend like, oh, what do you mean the Israeli lobby? All of a sudden, all that just goes out the window when he comes back onto News Nation. And that's something I have noticed particularly with him. And that tells you that Chris knows exactly what's going on. He's very much aware. Chris is acting. When you see him on News Nation, Chris is acting. It's all an act. He just admitted to him he knows about the money, the lobby. Let's continue.
But there's two things. Number one, there's something about a little bit of a hypocritical side of how the GOP deals this, because most of the pro-Israel, pro-Zionist are anti-Semites. It's crazy.
You really believe they're anti-Semites?
Who can remember, forget MTG, like about it, like the whole Jewish laser guns. A lot of people pro-GOP will go out and say Jews will not replace us in Charlottesville. So there's this crazy split. And Netanyahu is friends with all of those people, the pro-Zionists, but they're very anti-Semite. They hate the Jews and they love Israel. And you know why they do that, right? It's only because of the rapture, the second coming of Jesus. They are like, when we talk about Zionism, I don't even think about Jewish people, because most of the Jewish people are actually on our side, Jewish Voices for Peace. There's Bernie Sanders, all of it. It's not a Jewish thing. It is a Zionist thing. Most Zionist people are actually Christian Zionists.
Pause. That piece right there is very important. Now, if I was him, I wouldn't have mentioned Bernie Sanders is on our side, because he's not. In fact, in a recent interview, Bernie Sanders will not admit that a genocide is taking place in Palestine. Actually, I think Bree shared that on Twitter earlier today. He won't admit that, and Bernie Sanders still won't call for a ceasefire. So I wouldn't have added Bernie Sanders in the mix of all of that. But he's right. If you actually look at the numbers, for the most part, most of the Jewish people, I can say at least in America, are actually on our side, on the side of the pro-Palestinian protests and rallies and the pro-Palestinian stance and position. And that is also the reason why a lot of the Zionists are very nervous, and they're trying to smear people and dox people. They tried to dox those students at Harvard. They trying to dox presidents of universities and all those things, because they realize they're losing control of the narrative. Just like when Biden had that conversation with Netanyahu and said Israel is losing support. they're starting to lose control of the narrative. So just keep that in mind. That's why they're trying to do everything they can. Like the story about, they said the women were assaulted. They had no evidence, no forensics, nothing. But a story was just confirmed by the UN earlier today. I put it on Twitter that they have actual credible sources that show that Palestinian women have been sexually assaulted. But there's no outrage coming from the Hillarys or the Biden or Kamala or even like the people on the right as well. There's no outrage in reference to that. So what you see again is that once again, our politicians actually do not represent the American people. They represent their donor interest.
And they're pushing the whole world for a brink because of this. There's like this book called Forcing God's Hands. Incredible book. It was written in 1998. And they're talking about the dispensationalists and how they basically made it a self-professing prophecy. And those people who believe in the second rapture, they believe that all Jews will be killed and only 144,000 people will remain and they're all going to follow Christ. Yep. It is dogmatic and it's crazy in a country that is liberal and secular than the United States. So I talk about a lot to people in the Democratic Party, and they are very upset about the leadership, which is Biden, and how and Secretary Blinken, which is like a disgrace. Yeah, I mean, we're gonna get to that like later, but it is about part of it's right and left. But now, as much as I'm one of those people, I would vote blue no matter who. I will never give my voice to Biden after what he's done.
So then what do you do if you're blue no matter who, and the who is Biden and you won't vote for him? What do you do?
I would sit that one out, seriously. And it's crazy because I became an American citizen in this country, and I'm so happy to vote. And it took America 4 years to get checked out of the elections.
So let's think about this for a second, guys. And this is what I said, right? Like that a lot of people will vote the couch. A lot of people will vote couch 2024. So he's letting you know, he said no. And I guess he was one of those people that was like a vote blue no matter who. But he's like, nah, this is a bridge too far for me.
Because if you are continue supporting a daily killing there, and you're not even like wanting to put the slightest effect to stop the killing, why would I vote for you? And then they come back and they blackmail us. It's like, but yes. Reproductive rights. At least if a woman in Tennessee cannot have reproductive, she can travel to California, New York to do it. Those people in Gaza have nowhere to go.
Blackmail. I love the fact that he referred to it as blackmail. They come back and they blackmail us. It's true. It's like for the people who are telling me, well, if you don't vote for Biden, what are you going to do? I was like, I could vote third party or independent. Oh, but that's helping Donald Trump. I'm like, well, I'm not voting for someone who's supporting and funding a genocide. 2, I'm not voting for the Democratic Party or the Republican Party. I left the two-party system. Oh, well, you're just handing it to Donald Trump. Then if you come back and say, okay, I'll just vote the couch and I'll just sit at home. Oh, no, you're still just handing it to Donald Trump. So what they want you to do is they want you to overlook the genocide and just put that to the side. And they want you to still go out there and support Joe Biden anyway, because they're afraid of Orange Man. And now when you think about this, how does the Democratic Party, how do they, push against you in reference to that situation if you don't want to vote for Joe Biden? Then they start to use the abortion issue, which they have held on to this card for years. Barack Obama didn't codify Roe v. Wade. He said he would do that, never did. They had many years to codify Roe v. Wade, but they held on to that card in the event they needed it later. Now's that time. So now they're telling people, women, if you want to protect your reproductive rights, you need to go out and vote for Joe Biden so that he can get this fixed. Otherwise, if you vote for Trump, abortion is going to be outlawed in the United States. Now, listen to this. When you are told that statement, this is how you push back. Biden could have done that his first year. If they really cared about your reproductive rights, Biden could have done that his first year. They could still try to do that now. So you see what he means by they blackmail you? You're going to lose all your reproductive rights if you don't come out and support Joe Biden. Crazy, isn't it?
So and it's always been like the Democratic Party blaming the minorities because the Democratic Party gave us the promise that we are on your side. But in reality, they are not, because here you have a war, 27,000 kids, 27,000 Palestinians killed, 100,000 being injured, 70% of the homes. You did this show with Abdul Jabbar, the father, and you gave him the space, and I really appreciate because, and this guy is an American citizen. He's not even in Gaza, and his son was killed for throwing, and he's not even throw the stone. And even if he threw a stone, he should not be killed. So
we don't know that he threw any stones.
But even if he did, does he deserve to get shot?
No, he doesn't. But this is important, right? So Palestinian American, right? Now, why is this important in reference to those of us that live in the U.S.? How is that any different from the way that police treat unarmed Black people here in the United States? So this kid, they say that he threw a rock. So that was a death sentence for him. No arrest, no trial, no sentencing, just an automatic death sentence. Now, where did the American police get that from? They get it from the IDF, because the IDF trains police here in the United States, in particular, the NYPD. So think about that when you see some of the tactics that our police use in this country and you compare it to what's happening with the IDF in Israel.
Oh, no. That should be simple. No. But I don't like the suggestion, not from you, but the father even put it out there that, they say he threw rocks. Look, the fact scenario doesn't make any sense. The lack of investigation, the things that he told me they said to him when they came to the house, he wanted his son's personal effects. He says one of the soldiers threw the wallet on the ground and said, go ahead, reach for it, and I'll send you the same place I sent your son. Mm-hmm. Now, he's probably lying. Well, why? This is his son. The guy's an American. He's not anti-America. He is American. I think that it's so easy for people. If I were to look at how people blame me for things, you're an IDF shill. You hate the Jews. It goes back and forth because we're in a place now where if I'm not agreeing with you all the time, I'm your enemy. And so many things, you use the word nuance. Yes, complex situations. If the Middle East isn't complex, what is? There's never a single factor explanation. Here's a thing I've been thinking about lately on this.
There's that word again, complex. No, it is not complex, guys. We have to push back against that as well. And we have to push back about who they consider to be a Semite, right? Because I told you before, if you look at the definition, Palestinians are also Semites. This is not something that is just unique to Jewish people, right? So this complex, statement that they give you, right? What do you mean when it's complex? That's just a way for you to say, well, I don't really have time to discuss it. I don't want to really dive into it, but it's not complex. I've explained this to you multiple times. We've explained the history on this show. You could probably find a TikTok video, which will explain it to you in 2 minutes. So it's not complex. That is a scapegoat. That's a way to get out of focusing on what Israel has truly done. And so when people throw in that word, it's complex. We can't really talk about it. It's too complicated. It's not complicated.
But I don't want to lose my point, which is, don't you need a platform? I know you're doing shows, Bassem's all over the country doing his comedy, which is a great act. You can watch, like I do, online. You can find clips all over the place of Bassem Youssef. But
yeah, and you coming to my show in New Jersey?
No way. I don't go to New Jersey.
Yeah, he don't go to New Jersey. I don't know what that's about. That was kind of funny, though. You say he don't go to New Jersey. There was this thing like when I lived in New York, too, like people would say that. They would be like, oh, no, we don't go to Jersey. And I'm like, well, damn. Let's dive into this part of the interview here.
Israel is America's friend. Israel is for supporting Israel is for the best interest. And I want to challenge that because there has been now as an American citizen, I don't think Israel is a good friend. Can you call a country a friend if they have a spy, Jonathan Pollard, who spied on America? And he was an American. He was not Israeli. He took a life sentence in 1987. And just to spy to the United States in 1995, Israel gave him the Israeli citizenship while he was in jail. That's a spite.
Yep.
And then he was released 2020 on a private jet sponsored by an American billionaire. Sheldon Adelson, and he was greeted at the airport by Benjamin Netanyahu. What kind of message do you give the people?
Adelson is the big Republican
yes.
fundraiser.
Let me show you how Chris is focusing on the wrong thing here. Sheldon Adelson, right? He said Adelson is the big Republican. How would I have phrased this differently? Adelson is a billionaire. That's how I phrase it. Who cares if they're Republican or Democrat? I think it's more important that this guy is a billionaire. That's what you should be discussing. That's why he was able to just get a meeting like that with Netanyahu. That's what Bassem was talking about. Why do you think he was able to just meet Netanyahu like that? He's a billionaire. It's not because he's a Republican. It's because he got money. Let's go on.
Yes, but like, what kind of message if the head of Israel is receiving like a hero? That, okay, what about the Herzog affair, 1950, 1954, where Chaim Herzog was an attaché in Israeli embassy, and he was recruiting spies when American soil, and he was tipped off that the FBI is coming to him. He escaped, and how he was rewarded? 2 times Israeli president, 1983, 1993, and he's the president of the father of the current president today. How can you call a country if the Apollo affair, where Rafi Eitan, an Israeli spy, stole 206 enriched uranium from Numek? How can you call them? How can you call a country that committed terrorist attack, killing an American citizen in American soil, and then they fled to Israel, and the JDL 1985, Alex Oda, he was Christian, Palestinian American, and he was assassinated by 3 members of the JDL, and they escaped to Israel, and America cannot get them back because Israel does not want to deliver. How can you call someone who commit an attempted assassination on an American diplomat, John Gunther Dean, our ambassador in Lebanon, and he wrote it in his memoir, and he said the American did not investigate it. What is the most lethal attack on American naval vessel in history in the Middle East?
USS Cole.
How many people died?
I don't remember, but a lot. I went and covered
17. How many people injured? 37. But that's not the most lethal. The most lethal attack on American naval vessel was USS Liberty, 9th of June, 1967. They were attacked by the Israeli army, and they killed 34 American soldiers, injured 171, and they paid $6 million in compensation. This is how worth the American lives it is to them. Can we call this a friend?
Yes. And here's why.
Okay.
No. And that's a good point that he mentioned there about them not being held accountable for crimes. But there's also something else. And I talked about this before on the show. Israel has also become a safe haven for people who have committed, let me put this here, child sex crimes, for people who have trafficked children, for people who have, that's a safe haven for them. Actually, and CNN did a whole segment about this. I'm surprised more people don't talk about it. But CNN actually did an entire segment about how Israel has become a safe haven for those criminals. Not kidding. They know that they can go there and they'll be fine and they'll be protected. So once again, it shows that Israel is not held accountable, not just in reference to this war with Gaza, not just in reference to occupation and oppression, but also in reference to criminal activity.
Because it's messy and it's a relative assessment. And you have the largest Jewish population outside of Israel is in America. Mm-hmm. And they're people of pride and prominence, and the connection politically and culturally has always been strong, and it's a relative assessment. You make a checklist going back to the 1950s of what Israel has done that was wrong, and now you have to compare it to everybody else in the region that is of any value to you. And you wind up with Israel being at the top of the heap. And look, I don't have any problem.
So there's Chris again acknowledging that he realizes it's all about value and benefit, right? So America doesn't want to have like a friend outside of the US unless there's some value there for the United States government. And what are we really saying when we do that? What are we really saying when they say, well, Israel is our friend and nobody else apparently is? Like, what? It gives people the impression that that group of people is better than other groups of people. When people see how the US government refers to Israel versus how they refer to Gaza and Palestinian people, it's obvious that the majority of the narrative that you see on mainstream media, is obvious that they are actually putting the Israeli people above the Palestinian people. And you see Black commentators do it too, which is really sad. And you see Black politicians do it too, which is really, really sad. But why are they doing that? They're doing that because that's what they're paid to do. They're not paid to sympathize for the Palestinian people. They're not paid to sympathize for the people who are actually being oppressed. They're paid to sympathize with the people who are actually doing the oppressing.
I don't think the issue is that Israel has been misunderstood as an ally and they're an enemy. I don't think that's what it is. I think it's, what do you do when your allies are in bad situations and there's situations that are at least in part of their own causing? What do you do? The problem is right now, the American answer is absolutely nothing, or as little as possible, because America's population is exhausted.
Let's pause here for a second, because there's something else that I wanted to say there. What do you do when one of your allies has messed up or whatever? I would like to rephrase that, because I don't want people to have that in the back of their head. Israel did not mess up. What Israel is doing has always been intentional. If you look at the Zionism project, this was always the plan, to rid the population of the Palestinian people and just have the state expand. This is why they're attacking Lebanon as well. Hamas is not in Lebanon. They're attacking them right now. So to have the state of Israel expand and they actually have control over that whole region, that was the Zionism project. It's not just, oh, let's just have this little piece right here and just keep it what it is. But I had to push back on that narrative, because I don't want you to walk away thinking Israel made a mistake. This is not a mistake. This was intentional. They knew exactly what they were going to do. They knew exactly how they were going to do it. And what was supposed to happen is the State Department would actually create the narrative, so it would have, of course, the public support would be for the state of Israel. However, for the first time in my lifetime, that did not happen. Because particularly, especially a lot of the younger people, they are more aware. They grew up with social media. They know what's going on, right? So you have to think about that. We'll come back in here. Sorry about that. I had to skip through because that was a promo, and I don't do promos on this show.
The beginning, not in terms of historical reciprocity, but on October 8th, 7th, 8th, what should have happened? What do you believe should have been the series of events that would have led us to a better place than we're in now?
Well,
see, notice how once again he's starting with October 7th. Because if you start before that, you have to acknowledge that Israel actually created this conflict because they were attacking the Palestinian people first. You have to acknowledge that.
Here's the problem with discussing this. You always reset the clock at October 7th. Always.
But here's why.
But you're missing what led.
I'm not missing.
Okay.
I know that the reason
remember
it
the
happened,
video that they circulated about you? Those punk ass white people on their pages on the right. They judge you for your reaction.
Yes.
But they didn't talk about what they have been doing.
That's exactly
that.
right. And I get it. October 7th didn't happen in a vacuum. I totally understand. But it's also about your standard of what kind of retaliation you will submit to as a natural consequence. There's no question that there is a state of oppression in what's happening in Palestine. Israelis will mention that. In polls, they'll say that they don't like the way it is.
But Chris Cuomo won't say this on News Nation. You guys paying attention to what's happening here? See, one thing I can tell you I can say is this. You have people that do two shows. So like Brianna Joy Gray, she's on Rising, but she also has Bad Faith Podcasts. One thing I will say is that Bree stays consistent across the board. So however she describes what's happening to Israel and Gaza on Bad Faith, she'll have that same point of view on Rising when they bring up that subject, right? Chris Cuomo doesn't, though. This is what I'm trying to tell people. He's admitting on this show with this interview, he's admitting that there is oppression. But Chris Cuomo has interviewed multiple people on News Nation about this particular issue, and he's taking the side of being pro-Israel, and he's made excuses for Israel every time. So this is the wake-up call, folks. This shows you that he knows.
Except for Bibi's government and his ministers, which is, I believe, much more right, extreme, and anti-Palestine, anti-Brown, let's say, than the Israeli non-Brown population. So I know that. I know that October 7th wasn't the beginning. I know that for many, it was a cry of desperation. Okay. But what was done on October 7th, I don't think is subjective. I think objectively was something that was only done to provoke a response. You don't burn Jewish people and think that Israel's not going to come for you. Hamas, by all indications, which is why it got its leadership out of there, was anticipating exactly what happened. So assuming that you come in, you kill a bunch of their people, they're going to come for you. There's going to be warfare. Okay. That's not.
We can't, and I don't think any of us have denied that there were people that were killed. I don't think any of us have denied that. And Max Blumenthal has talked about this as well. None of us are, at least not to my knowledge, I don't think any of us are denying that, right? But I think he doesn't really understand what the objective was. I brought Solomon on the show and he explained this. Number one, the music festival wasn't supposed to happen. The music festival was only supposed to be a one-day event. So the day that they had planned to break free, there was supposed to be no music festival. The plan was supposed to be for them to capture some hostages in exchange for the negotiation of the Palestinian hostages that Israel has been keeping in prison. Remember, I told you Israel will just grab Palestinian people and they'll throw them in prison. No trial by jury, right? None of that. This is what they've been doing. So that is what was supposed to happen. But as you see, even now, when Hamas has once again said ceasefire and you get the hostages, Netanyahu says no. So this is why I'm telling you, it was never about the hostages for Israel. Netanyahu said, fuck them people. He said, fuck them kids. He does not care about the hostages. If he cared about the hostages, he would have accepted the temporary ceasefire to get the rest of them back. He doesn't care about that. And I hope people in Israel wake up and see this. He don't care about you guys either. So that's the piece that Chris has to fully understand. Let's dive in a little bit more here.
Not a surprise to anybody. We would do the same thing. Okay. And scale wise, it was a big deal for Israel. What should have happened? We're 4 months in now, plus. What do you think should have happened? Like after the first week, do you believe that the world should have said, okay, that's enough? The numbers, they killed 1,000 or 1,500, whatever the number is. Now you've killed 10 times.
They already killed 5,000 in 2 weeks.
So let's say, should it have ended then? And if so, because that would be great, less killing is always better if you're humanistic. Then what? I don't understand the how of ending this right now. I know ceasefire, I get it. But how do I stop? I'll play Israel, okay? If I stop, okay, I'll stop. I'm beating you up too much. I'm killing too many people. I'm killing too many innocents. I'm killing too little Hamas. I can't get you. You're in the tunnels, and you have my people who I want back, who now I believe as many as a quarter of them are dead already. More. So they're supposed to matter. I'm not getting you anyway, and I'm killing all these innocents. I'll stop. How do they stop and not believe that they're not going to get attacked by Hamas as soon as Hamas
And how
can?
would Hamas stop not knowing that they believe that Israel will do the same? Here's the thing about October 7th. I think for both of our viewers, people who follow me and follow you, I think we really need to discuss the stuff that we can share information that I might not know. You've seen the video. I've not seen the video, the 47 minutes video. And I believe that what you've seen, other than the stuff that we've seen, you've seen people tied up, you've seen burnt corpses, you've seen mutilated bodies, right? Now, I want to talk about two things. Why is the connection about the Jewish people to Israel, which I understand, is that Jewish people have been persecuted for centuries. They've been pushed around from one country to another. They've been burned. They've been put in gas chambers. I really believe that kind of generational trauma is a huge thing that you cannot ignore. And that is why for them, Israel is not just a place. It's not just a country. It is an idea that no matter what happens to us in the world, we have a place that is strong, that can protect us, that it will never happen to us again. What happened in the under Babylon, under the Nazis, under the Russians, we have that place. So I understand that. And I understand the shock that happened on October 7th, like even that place is not safe anymore. So having said that, I want you to look at the other side. On the other side, every day for the Palestinian people is October 7th. Every day they are kidnapped from their homes. Every day they are killed. Every day I'm going to come to the burning, I'm come to the atrocities.
You also got to bring up the fact of mowing the lawn. So it's not like this is the first time that the IDF has attacked Gaza. This is not the first time. They've been doing this to these people for quite some time.
I'm not gonna miss anything, and I promise you I would, because here's the thing about conversation. The thing that how people lose conversation is that when I don't show you the empathy that is deserved for your pain, and I understand that. So I see that. When November 4th, the first exchange between the hostages, Israel released 240 children and women. 233 of them were never convicted. So basically, we call them prisoners because they're put in Israeli prison, but actually they go in the houses and they kidnap them on daily basis. Every single day, people are shot.
Well, they'll say it's a parallel system of justice for Israeli citizens, many of whom are not Jewish, right? And then there is this occupied, murky international standard of how you treat people when you are occupying them.
Yes.
And there's a different military type justice, but it is also deserving of scrutiny and criticism. And you have a lot of people without due process who've been held for a long time.
Absolutely.
But Israel is the only democracy in the East, though, right? You see how this... So here's the thing. Not to mention Palestinian people have been imprisoned when that's not even the person they were looking for. So some of the other examples that have been pointed out is the fact that the IDF may come looking for, like you, for example, and they go to the house and you're not there, but your brother is there. So they'll take your brother instead of taking you because you weren't available. There's stories like that have come out, like of the West Bank and everywhere. So the thing is that you cannot oppress people and occupy people and expect the people not to rise up. We've seen this all throughout history. And what's really scary is that some of the pictures that I'm seeing online that were from the Holocaust, now I'm also seeing pictures from Israel that are similar. Repeating mistakes of their former oppressor.
For Palestinians, they're sitting at their homes and they're being kidnapped every day from their homes. Israel is the only country in the world that tries children in front of military courts, and they have a 99.7 conviction rate. There's nowhere in the world you have 99.7 conviction rate. And sometimes it's like, but they are terrorists. Okay, Zainab Araqat, 2010, her husband were killed. And then she posted on Facebook, "May God unite us in heaven." And because of that, Israel went to her house and they detained her for 8 months for acts of terrorism. So when
you hear this, guys? See, these are some of the things that are happening to these people. But then we also have to remember, they also torture Palestinians in the prison too. They torture Palestinians. Some of the children have been abused. The children that they've been in prison. There was a woman that testified. Actually, she gave an interview and she explained that they were sexually assaulting some of the kids that they had there as prisoners. Remember, this is the safe haven place where sexual offenders can go to.
When Israel goes in with civil clothes and kill people in the hospital, like they are terrorists. Said who? Israel. Who decides? So the whole thing about like, when you have, out of the 240 people that were released by Israel, 107 were children. 65 were the age of 18, meaning that they were children when they acted. So the daily kidnapping happens and the daily killing happens there. We have just been microdosing it, and The world doesn't care about it until October 7th happens. Now let's talk about October 7th. October 7th is a fucking atrocity. It's a terrorist attack. It's terrible, and no one can ever. I cannot even imagine the Israeli and the Israelis' parents and family that went through that, and also the Jewish people who, as I said, they are connected to that place, thinking them it's a safe haven. For them, it's shattering. The people who were, but the problem is what happened, what we saw yesterday or afterwards. Anthony Blinken went on in front of Congress and he testified about an incident where Hamas terrorists went in. They gouged the father's eyes. They raped the mother. They chopped off her breasts. They amputated the child leg, and they cut the little fingers, the finger of a little boy, and then they had breakfast and laughed. That is a direct testimony from Zaka and Hezbollah United, two relief groups from Israel, that they have actually been exposed that all of the stuff that they said has been lies, and they have collected more than $50 million of donations because of these unverified lies. And this has been reported by the Israeli media, Haaretz, Channel 13, and Time of Israel.
So you guys hear this? Again, the lies. There's been a lot of lies that have been told. And our state media basically tells us that, you know, when Israel makes these statements, when the IDF makes these statements, we're just supposed to believe what they say. But anytime information comes from Gaza on the ground, we're supposed to question it because it's coming from Gaza. Again, like I said, and, you know, all these people are complicit in this. They are continuing to show you that they feel that one group is better than the other. And they don't have to actually say those words. They show you that by their actions. They show you that by their behavior. So they don't actually have to say that we believe the Israeli people are better than the Palestinian people. But you see the actions. The US government will not okay a ceasefire. It was the only country that was not willing to okay the ceasefire. So we all see where the power sits. We see who holds the purse strings, and we see who is allowing this to continue. And I think that this is troubling for the United States as well, because the rest of the world, they're watching us, and they're not going to forget this. They're not going to forget that our government continued to give Israel weapons. So the reason why Israel has the military capability that it does is because of the United States. Hamas doesn't have all those things. They don't have powerful weapons the way that Israel does. So it's hard to even make the comparison between the two. One has an army, the other does not.
So this shock, the allegation, a huge part of it is something that you've seen burn bodies. But in the same time in Israel, people talk about the Hannibal Directive, where the Israel went in and indiscriminately, they shot Hellfire missiles from Apaches. They shot shells from tanks. There is an Israeli survivor. Her name is Yasmin Porat. She came on a podcast and she talked about being in a house with 14 other hostages and 40 terrorists, and said everybody was alive. And then the Israelis started their tanks shooting. All the 40 were killed, the terrorists, and 12 out of the 14 hostages were killed. That's an 85% kill rate. Now, let's talk about the decapitated babies. According to the official Israeli records, one baby was killed, Mila Cohen, 10 months, 12 children from the age to 2 to 9, 36 from the age from 12 to 19, a total of 49 innocent children who should never have been killed or even touched on that day. The biggest casualty was 421 people from the age of 20 or 40. The total number of people that killed with that day, 1,120 people, 29 people. 373 of them were police and military, and 759 civilians. No rape, no decapitation, nothing. All of these were refuted. Even the New York Times piece and the Guardian retracted them because they were taken for right. So if you have the highest rated official going in and saying lies, and now you created this image. I'm telling you, on the October 8th, when that happened, when I heard that the people were killed and decapitated, it's like, oh, fuck them. Go in and kill everybody. The Muslim, the Arabs, like that because that was the image I had. Does it make it less horrific that there are just 759 just killed, most of them killed by maybe firepower from the Israeli? No, it's still horrific. But you created that image so people now are prepared and prepped to go in and kill everybody. This is blind rage. And what we did right now, What did you say? Do you say one times like I'm done playing the game, I'm done refereeing the game, I need to expose the game? What we then read right now is investigative journalists. The 40 decapitated baby became a myth, and everybody now believes. So if I talk about them, nobody wants to.
I don't think everybody believes it. And
you see this? You see this? We're not going to go on too much longer here, but the thing about the decapitated babies like that. But again, the State Department, they planted that narrative. Nobody saw this happen. Nobody had any pictures, even though Joe Biden told that lie and said he saw pictures. He had to come back and he had to retract that statement. But they put that out there just to get enough support from the people to say, oh, yeah, well, that's it. Israel should go in there and just handle business or whatever. Then they had to come back and debunk it. It did not work this time. It did not work. And they're scrambling.
It was used as an emotional way to suck money, 50 million, and to allow people to say, all right, go and kill everybody.
There's no question that it was tremendously powerful hearing that allegation.
So when I break down the numbers to you now, how do you
Here's
feel?
my problem with breaking down the numbers. It's not new to me, okay?
I'm sure that you know.
I've heard this, and I accept it, by the way. Now, I can't say I know, but I'll say I accept it because I can say that about all the numbers. Okay?
Absolutely.
And I can say that about when I was covering war in Iraq and Afghanistan. If I don't see it, I guess I can trust. I mean, the numbers are always in round numbers,
But these are official numbers from the Israelis.
I understand, but I don't know that makes them true. It's like,
So who do you believe? These are
But I'm saying I think it's a problem. Okay. Because why? Well, because of motivation. If I get attacked and I'm going to give you the description of the damage, there's every incentive for me to exaggerate it.
So let's go ahead. We'll stop it here. But you can watch the entire interview on his channel. But one of the things I wanted to say about that what he just said there at the very end about that conversation, he just let you know, like, he doesn't have to accept it. I can hear what they say about the numbers, but I don't have to accept it. Right? So watch the full interview, the discussion that he had with Bassem, and then I want you to check out News Nation later on this week. A little homework assignment. Check out News Nation a little bit later this week and watch Chris Cuomo still have the same talking points. I don't know who's running things over there at News Nation. I don't know what it is. I don't know if they're a part of the same company as Rising. They're also a part of Nexstar, right? So I don't know if it seems like maybe on Rising, they have a little bit more freedom to say what they think and how they feel. And maybe more so on News Nation, it's not that way. I don't know. But all I know is his talking points are still the same. So I don't feel like he's actually learning from these conversations that he's having, or he's just acting, right?